Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Soul Focus Radio. I'm your host, Martin Friedman, and today I'm joined by our senior consultant and vice president, Dustin Washington. What's happening, Dustin?
Yo, what's up, Martin? How you doing, bro?
I'm doing really good, man. I'm feeling really good, feeling a lot of energy and kind of hyped and excited to talk to you. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's definitely been a minute, man. You should be hyped down in that beautiful weather in Boca Raton.
So here I am, made a very spontaneous move while maintaining a home base in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where it's quite snowy. We are also down in Boca Raton, Florida, as you said. Dustin, it's pretty wild here, man. It's like a different world. It really is.
Yeah, man, I know. I'm excited for you. When I just look out the window here in the Northwest and see all this rain and this chilly weather, man, and then those pictures you're sending me from the beach, bro. Not that I get jealous, but I a little twinge of jealousy flowing through. I was like, I would like to be on the beach sometime. That sounds really
Yeah.
nice. And bro, what's crazy, Martin, is one of our getaways up here is going to the beach here in the Pacific
Yes.
Northwest, which is beautiful, but it's not sunny. It's not warm water. You can't lay out and do all the things you can do. So I'm so happy for you guys, man. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Lived 30 years up there, and the rest of my life in the North is the first time ever having a residency down here in the South, man. It's a different world. It's beautiful here. It actually doesn't. It reminds me a lot of the Northwest, except like the opposite in climate. But in terms of it rains a lot here, it's cloudy a lot, except it's like 70 instead of 40 this time
Yeah.
of year.
Yeah.
But it's also just physically beautiful. And one of the things I was thinking about this morning, yesterday we went and walked like in a little bit of a nature preserve, right by the beach. And one of the things that I thought of is when I lived in Seattle. Seattle is one of the most beautiful places in the world. That whole area,
By
Western
far.
Washington. But I got a pattern of life where I never enjoyed it. You know what
Mm,
I mean? Like I
mm.
didn't go to the mountains. I didn't go to the ocean. And so one of the commitments I made to myself while I'm down here is that I'm going to enjoy the natural beauty. I'm going to be outside. I'm going to go to the into the the tropical woods and go to the beach. Every day. That I can, and just really. I think that one of the things that happens with our lives is we get so busy that we just let our life we let the beauty of nature just pass us by.
I know, man. I know. I think about that a lot living up here because I think I've, definitely gone through that. I mean, you're so right. I mean, we have so much natural beauty here to take advantage of. One of the things we've been doing is going on, like, especially since the pandemic, and to get the boys out of the house is going on a lot of hikes through some trails here and really just there's trails you have here in Seattle that just you literally feel like you're not in the city anymore. But, and then of course, like I said earlier, us getting out to the ocean as much as we can is really important. But there's so much more. And, even Martin, as you bring up that sentiment around being so busy, one of the things I was thinking last night, during my meditation is that, for the first time in my life, man, I could definitely say I feel a sense of inner peace. Like I love my life. I mean, there's things I
Mm.
want to experience more of for myself and, my relationships with people, but I love my life. I love the work that I'm doing is work that I would get up and do for free. It's not work. It's me being me, my relationship with my children, my relationship with basketball, the people that I have in my life now are just, beautiful people that are all about love and growth and acceptance and beauty. I'm just really, even though we're in a pandemic and life has changed, this 2020 has been a challenge for a lot of folks, but it's also been maybe one of the most incredible years I've ever had in my life. And, as we think about how we get so distracted from what doesn't matter and we miss, the pot of gold that's like always like sitting on our lap, bro. Like there's always a pot of gold sitting on our lap, and we see
Mm.
past that to focus on the stuff that we don't like, and we miss the gifts. And so when you talk about the nature you're experiencing and the beauty, the physical beauty you're experiencing in Boca Raton, that's free, bro. That's right there every
Yeah.
day calling you.
Right.
Come on, Martin. Like let go of this, that whatever that is to let go of, and come get some of this peace, bro. And like I think, I would be highly upset with you if you didn't take advantage of it. And as I hear you say it, it's called me to take more advantage of what's right in front of me as well.
Yes, yes. Because I mean, we live in just the two places we live in. Just and I've lived in Cleveland. I love Cleveland. Cleveland is not filled with natural beauty. You know, Pittsburgh's got a couple rivers and everything. Three, I know Pittsburgh people want to get mad at me. Yes, yes, I know about all three rivers. And there's some physical beauty there, some hills and stuff. But man, the physical beauty in Florida and the physical beauty in Seattle area, yeah, it's just something that has to be taken advantage of. And one of the things that I really was thinking about what you just said, Dustin, is like, we externalize, we look externally for everything. I think we're taught to look externally for everything when everything we need is right here, and we're constantly searching, searching, searching. But everything we need is right here. You know what I need right now is I need an update on Nico and Elijah, because you just mentioned your relationship with your boys, and I need to hear how my godsons are doing, man, because those are two special little human beings.
Yeah. Well, life, I think about Nico. So, of course, Nico was born in 2017. So he was born before the pandemic and before being, locked in the house more than he normally would be. So I think he notices that things are different. But he's 3, so he's in the moment, and so he's happy all the time. He's so creative, man. His artwork that he's doing is unbelievable, and his mind is just he's a brilliant young man. And then Elijah is just the happy Buddha. He's just smiley all the time and really in love with his big brother. Those two have a deep bond with each other, and it's funny because Nico's kind of more like do his thing, and little bro tags along, but you can just see the admiration that Elijah has for him. And I think, Martin, one of the things that's been really awesome for me is I'm not traveling at all right now. So I'm getting to spend more time with them than I would have, and just really getting to know them and their particular ways of being, and just seeing their reflection. I look at pictures of myself when I was a child, and I see myself in them so much, of course, right? They look like me a lot. You talked earlier about focusing on what matters. They really help keep you grounded on what really matters, and just a purity and a truth, and think about, so much of the madness we see in our world right now. From people going hungry, the violence, the institutional oppression, all this stuff we see. I know the wisdom of these children and all the other children that are that age who haven't been tainted, haven't had their groundwater poisoned with all the messages that many of us as adults have received. They would think this social order is ridiculous, right? Right? They would never stand for a world being governed the way that we as adults have allowed to exist. And so I guess I say all that to say, Martin, is that they're beautiful. I'm really enjoying them so much, and I'm learning so much from them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm just being able to, like, you've gained, as we've established on these podcasts, you and I have known each other now for over 20 years, and and I've seen how much you've changed. And I watched you raise Kalen, and you did a beautiful job with Kalen. Kalen's 25 now, right? And just to see him really come into full adulthood, and it's incredible. And also just knowing how much you've learned and grown, and even just the level of inner peace that you feel as you're raising these next two sons of yours. I think just thinking about all the lessons that you've internalized, right? I'm just thinking so much about the fact that we focus so much on deficit in what we don't have, and we don't really focus a lot on what we do have. And just to hear you like be in full appreciation of what you do have, and also just the knowledge that you have as far as raising these boys, what the way that we're going to be raised. I know we've done podcasts on it and everything that's so focused parenting, but it's just so exciting to me to think about these two souls come into human form in an environment where they're going to be nurtured to be their true selves, and not fed a lot of lies about who they are, not had their ego filled up with lies, which happens to us so much.
Yeah, no doubt, Martin. And I learned so much from raising Kalen, and so much just on this journey, right? And being able to apply this, I'm older now, of course, parenting two young kids. which is a lot different. I was 20 something, 23 when Caleb was born. And so, I was, and, me especially, I was especially immature looking back. But, I think the two biggest things I'm trying to apply, or I am applying with Nico and Elijah, is number one is really letting them fully express who they are, and not projecting any of my socialized standards upon them, and catching myself when I am, just letting them fully be the children they are and accepting their expression as it unfolds. And the other thing is really helping them to know that they are not just that they're beautiful human beings, but they're divine beings, and they have infinite power, and they have everything inside of them they ever need to experience life as they choose to experience life, and that this is a playground for them, and they're here to have fun. And so just, being conscious of those two dynamics, day in and day out, in the big moments, in the small moments, is really both, I think, going to bear fruit for them, beautiful fruit for them, but it's also is a consistent message for me to both apply those two thoughts to myself as well.
Right, right. No, that's awesome. Appreciate you sharing that. So Dustin, one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about today, because I got really excited about, you and I recording another podcast together. And, we were talking the other day as part of a training that we were doing. We did an ego reduction training just a couple of days ago.
Right.
And listening to you talk about the ego and how the ego has impact, or how the ego impacts our ability to do transformational societal change, what people call social justice work. And, I really wanted to talk to you, and it's really the same conversation we're having now, but like, how is your understanding of how the ego functions and how it influences us change the way you look at social justice movements, particularly the movement to end racism? And I just want to remind folks, that our journey is away from just being anti-racist, just being against racism, to truly ending it. And I really want to hear, your thoughts on how ego impacts that.
That's a very important question, Martin. So I was first introduced to the concept of ego when I started coaching with Mahdi back in 2015, 2016. And, I, of course, had heard about ego, and, in the common way in which we talk about ego as being, arrogant, full of ourselves, that kind of thing. But as Mahdi really expanded my consciousness and my understanding around what the ego is and how it serves as a force in our lives that doesn't allow us to bring forward our authentic self, it was an expansive experience for me, and really caused me to reflect on everything that I was doing in my life, especially the anti-racist organizing work that I was involved in. I think the first thing, and maybe the most important thing, is recognizing that we have been bamboozled into thinking that we are our egos. So all these identities we develop, all these stories and narratives we have about, who we are from the experiences and the events that have taken place over our lives, all these things that we hold on to and believe that are us. They're not real. They're just created. Those are a construct. They only exist in our mind, but they all come together to create what is understood as our ego. And so, you'll hear many folks talk about ego as the false self. And I think that's a good descriptive way of understanding the ego. So this notion of Dustin, even this notion of being a man, or being black, or, all these stories, what I experienced as a child, trauma I experienced as a child, all that became part of my ego. And when we're in those places, we're not going to bring forward our true creativity. We're not going to bring forward our true inspiration and all the gifts that we have to bring to the world. And so what I saw myself doing, both individually and what I saw us doing collectively as a movement, is that when you act from that place, from that false self place, and, all the ways in which I described ego, we become conflict driven. We become problem focused. We become very controlling. We become self-righteous, and have this burning desire to be right. We start to seek to outside external validation. And what that does to us, both individually as leaders and as a collective movement, when we're kind of playing on all those ego dynamics, is that at the end of the day, we haven't solved anything. And what we have done is create more pain for ourselves and more pain, for the folks that we're interacting with on a day-to-day basis.
So, I mean, like basically, we're trying to enact real transformational change, but we're coming from a like a made up place. So, like we're standing there and we're giving speeches, and just think about all the time. I mean, you gave a lot more speeches than I did, but all the times that you gave speeches, like where were we coming from? Like, where were you coming from when you gave those speeches? Like, what was your real motivation? Because I think that was your real motivation transformational change, or like what was your real motivation when you were giving all those
Yeah,
speeches?
yeah. So if I'm going to be just honest, which I ought to always be, right? Which is important to me. I was coming from a place of performative expression, bro. When I look back and look at all those speeches, be really honest with you, it was about. So let me say that first of all, I say it was performative expression because I could get up and I have this ability, a natural ability, to get up in front of a crowd and I could really move a crowd. And so, but what I was doing on that stage was not reflective in terms of how I was living my life in the realest moments. How was I relating to my partner? How was I showing up with my physical health, my emotional health, my mental health? In those moments, I was deep into alcohol addiction, deep into gambling addiction, deep into sex addiction. I was playing out a lot of ugly stuff, but I could get up on stage and perform and even make myself believe that I was, connecting in an authentic way. But it was, in retrospect, it was truly inauthentic. And I think, Martin, earlier I said one of the ego dynamics is this seeking of external validation. So much of it was another drug for me. Just getting this flood of applause and people telling me how great I was, this ego-based attempt at filling this hole inside myself. And so it was performative expression through and through. I was fronting.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that because I'm like, I want to make sure people understand what we mean when we say performative expression. We're just fronting, right? Putting on a face for people, like give the people what they want. That's what I was thinking when you were just talking. Is like give the people what they want, and then what happens when you give the people what they want? They give you all kinds of accolades and all kinds of love, right? But you're not. If you're giving the people what they want, we were never being authentic. I was the same, Dustin. I just didn't I didn't have quite the same shine in Seattle, and I think a lot of that was, it wasn't that I didn't want it, but I thought, being a white guy in the anti-racist movement in Seattle, I have to kind of lay back a little bit. I can't fully be, like out there and like I know I said to you like, oh, I'll never win an award. And, I used to say all that kind of stuff all the time, right? I didn't mean I didn't want to. I did. I wanted that. I wanted the adulation and the accolades and stuff. And then, giving the people what they want was also like couching all that and like, oh, I don't really want that. That's not really important to me, but all that was a lie, man. All that was bullshit, to be honest with you. Really,
Yeah,
really,
no,
you
yeah, no
know?
doubt, no doubt. And Martin, as you say that, man, the thought that just jumped in my mind is there was so much, and I know for you because I know you so well, and you know me so well. So when we were in those public places doing the work we were doing publicly, there was a thin veneer of what was bubbling under the surface, and that stuff would come out all the time. So for me, my addictive behaviors, right, my wanting to please everybody. So what I found myself doing a lot in my organizing work was trying to, and you saw this, I mean, I always wanted to have a big crowd around me, right? And so I was always trying to please other people and to shapeshift and be this for this group of people, this for that group of people, say these right things for this group, right? And kind of like Du Bois talks about, I was wearing multiple masks all the time. I wasn't showing up and bringing my true authentic self, right? And I would often go along with ways of being as a collective that I fundamentally, disagreed with, but I would go along because I didn't want to seem out of favor. I wanted to be liked. And I went along with stuff that was dehumanizing to other human beings, that's not reflective of creating a just, loving world that I want to be a part of. And so, it's of course it's not an either or conversation. I learned so much about myself, even as I was mired in my ego throughout that experience. But as I've been able to really understand and do work, real intentional work on myself and how my ego is showing up, I've come to understand what ultimately is effective and what ultimately isn't effective in terms of creating this new world that we all seek. And I am committed to showing up today as my authentic self because I do want to be a part of creating a new world. As you talked about Elijah and Nico earlier, I don't want Elijah and Nico to have to sit at our age having these conversations about, poverty or the criminal justice system or the educate. That stuff is so dead. I know, Martin, I know that the ego was created and constructed and nurtured and is nurtured emphatically in this society to keep us stuck from never really creating something different. Because this oppression that we're dealing with, the racism, the patriarchy, the class arrangement, all the violence, all this is sustained by all of us being socialized and conditioned into an egoic mind.
And then our organizing, right? We're organizing against. So we're still organizing from that egoic mind. I've come to understand ego through my D, through coaching with my D, like you did, and also through you, like the way that you really explained it to me over these last couple of years, and also the fact that you're so self-reflective. I love how self-reflective you are when we have this conversation. When I think back on being, a part of the anti-racist movement, it felt like everything was ego-driven. Everything was being driven by false self. And when I look at it now, because I have some distance, I don't walk around with that primary identity anymore as like anti-racist organizer. That's not really who I am anymore as a primary identity. So when I look at what's happening in those worlds, it still feels that way to me. It still feels like so much of this is coming from an egoic place, like a better than place, a more than place, or a less than place. Everybody's constantly placing themselves above or below other people in these false constructed identities like race, gender, etc. And it just feels like it's not leading to anything that's really transformational. That's where I'm frustrated with. I don't think that you can transform if you're coming from a place of ego.
No, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, that's been proven over time. I mean, we keep going in a vicious loop over and over and recreating the same experiences, both individually and collectively. And we're not going to be able to create anything new coming from an egoic place. And, Martin, as you talked about that, and just, a question I want to have for you, because one of the things I know, and, when I think about subconscious programming, right, and those deprograms that are embedded within us in our groundwater, one of the programs that I had was an attraction to conflict. Even though I didn't consciously like the conflict, subconsciously I
Right.
had an attraction to conflict. So I saw myself creating conflictual. I created conflict with you all the time. Conflict, like we don't have conflict now anymore. Just so some of the folks who have known me and Martin for a long time would know that me and Martin would argue and fight over the dumbest shit, 4 or 5 times a
Yeah.
week. I mean, serious arguments, like things disrespecting each other, things that two human beings who say they love each other
Each other out.
should never
Yeah.
treat each other in the ways that me and Martin treated each other. I just want to say that very clearly, but we don't have that conflict anymore because we attract what's familiar to us, right? On a
Yeah.
vibrational level and on a subconscious level. So I saw myself constantly in conflict with people, folks that we would be saying, I love you, sometimes. And then we would just go, like I said, with Martin, we would go to these very awful, dehumanizing places with each other. And so I've seen you outgrow so much of this, Martin. And I like to hear you speak to what was your process of outgrowing this, both internally and externally.
Well, first of all, you stop being wrong so much. You know what I mean? So like once you stop being so wrong all the time, Dustin, everything was cool. Clearly I'm joking. I would say that my process was, and I'm still in it. Like I want to be really clear. Like even over the last couple of days, I've found myself still. I realized that the conflict is like a magnet for me, and that I can read somebody's text message, and like it happened to me yesterday. I read somebody's text message, and without the nuance or the context of their voice, like I immediately thought it was negative towards me, and then that was an alarm bell going off inside my head that I still have an attraction to conflict, and the process out of that is the process of becoming more and more confident with exactly who I am and becoming myself more and more and not finding validation, self validation in other human beings. I feel like so much of a part of my role in the anti racist movement was predicated on other people validating me. Maybe not so much in the speech giving piece, but like when I would get up and do pieces, or at a training, or people would have me come in and talk to their organizations or their high school classes. And I measured my effectiveness by the validation that I either received or didn't receive. And so, from my perspective, a lot of the conflict that I was in with you and other people that I really loved and cared about, it was because I felt like I wasn't getting the external validation that I needed. And that was triggering for me, because then it felt like I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing, that maybe I had harmed you or somebody else, that I was wrong in some way. And the farther I get away, Dustin, I've been thinking a lot today about the difference between the need to be right and the need to not be wrong. And I think they're two different things, and I suffer from both of them. The need to be right, I think, is very much built on a linear foundation, like a white cultural foundation of either being right or wrong, right? And the need to be right is the need to like show people that you understand the world and how it is, and that everything makes sense to you and you can make everything make sense. And that's in a very linear way to me, right? Very white cultural way. The need to not be wrong for me is very much rooted in like childhood shit for me, childhood traumatic stuff, where I felt like my family put me in a position to like essentially like protect them emotionally from a very young age. And so when I feel like I've done something wrong, it takes me to this place of like, oh, I fucked up so bad and I've harmed people and I've harmed the people that I love.
Yeah.
And the farther I start to distance myself from the need to be right and the need to be wrong, as it's built on a line. Now, I know we use fancy words sometimes when we talk about white culture, talk about linear culture. All we're saying is that many cultures in the world see things in a circular fashion, and for the most part, Europeans, we were taught to see things in a line. And on either side of that line, where are you on either side of that line? Are you a man? Are you a woman? Are you rich? Are you poor? Are you straight? Are you gay? Are you, black? Or are you white? And nothing really functions like that. That's part of it, the egoic mind, right? That's made up. That's made up shit to keep us controlled. So the farther I get away from that, and the more I notice that it's happening to me, and the farther that I get away from that egoic need to be right and that need to not be wrong, the less conflict oriented I've been. It's like, how you see those signs at work, like at a construction site. I actually live next to, or basically live in a construction site right now, because they're just building these places around us. And, they have the signs up that say, we've gone this many days without an accident, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with you and me, like, especially once Corona hit and you and I were doing like intense self work and really shifting our relationships to ourselves and therefore shifting our relationships to everybody else. Like, I wanted to like have a sign up every day, like 41 days without a fight with Dustin, 62 days, no fight with Dustin, like 91 days, no arguments with Dustin. It's like, like I really wanted to mark it because it was a beautiful thing, because we didn't go 91 hours without a fight back in the day. You know what I'm saying? Not physically, but verbally, knock down, drag out, cuss each other out stuff,
Right. Martin, as you're speaking, man, bro, I so relate to what you're talking about. One of the things I've been reflecting upon a lot, and I talked about coaching with Mahdi in 2016, but the truth is, I coach with Mahdi every day. I mean, we talk 5-6 times a day, and anybody that knows, brother Mahdi, Rock Giver, knows that the brother's on point in terms of his spiritual science, spiritual teaching, and just how he seeks to live his life. And one of the things, we've talked a lot about now is, being raised in this society, in a Judeo-Christian society, we have this sense of heaven being this place we go to after life, and hell being this place we go to for eternal punishment, which is not meant to be literal. But, bro, I remember going to church growing up. We'd have Bible study on Wednesdays, and we would be shown as kids videos of people burning in hell. Like, if you don't, do all these things right, this is what you're going to experience, which is, traumatizing for a child in and of itself. But the truth is, heaven is a state of mind, a consciousness, and hell is a state of mind and a consciousness. And when we're stuck in the places that we're talking about right now, we are actually living in hell. And it's become so normalized. So many people, like I just got one of my basketball players, there was an awful murder that happened, and just reading the news articles, like, man, that's hell. That's hell. Those people were not just, the event that led to the murder itself was a hellacious event, but there had to be a consciousness of hell, for 20 years prior to that, that would lead to that. And so I think about, when you talk about these stories we build up in our minds, like I know, like you were talking about, getting a text and reading into the text. I do that. I'm training myself not to do that anymore. And I speculate many of our listeners will build up narratives based on what we hear people say, where we think people are coming from, whether that's through a text, whether that's through a conversation, or sometimes I would do it like if I text you, for example, and you don't respond, I build up this whole narrative that you're mad at me and something's going on. And I could build up this whole story where literally it would physically affect my body. And one of the things I've started to do now is really recognize that is my ego and understanding our egoic minds only want misery for us. And the truth is, I do not know what that situation means, what that text might mean or not mean. And the truth is, it doesn't even matter. And, beginning to recognize the habitual pattern of creating something, a negative narrative, when I have infinite choice. I can make any narrative. I can make a narrative of heaven that, oh, they're just having a good time and they're enjoying themselves. I can make a narrative of heaven, but I've seen how I've created my own hell on earth over the course of my life. And, I think one of the major lessons for me during this, this year, 2020 pandemic and all that, it's just how finite life really is. And, Martin, whether we're here for 30 years, 50 years, 80 years, 100 years, that's nothing in this span of time. This is a short journey. And just thinking of spending 98%, 95, 98% of that in hell, that's just such a waste, And like we have choice that we could create heaven on earth, and all of it is within our minds. This whole reality only exists within our consciousness and our minds, and we have choice. And for me, I've decided that I'm not going to give in to that old program of creating those narratives anymore. So as they start to come up, I'm challenging myself. I'm calling myself just to sit and be in peace. And lo and behold, 95 to 99% of those narratives, once they're investigated, once they reveal themselves, are in fact benign. And so,
That's right.
So you think about that, Martin. So think about as we come into this collective organizing work with all those negative narratives of why people are doing what they're doing, what they mean by what they say. What have you seen that cause for us collectively?
Right. Yeah. I mean, just thinking about what you're saying right now, like what you're saying, and this isn't directly answering your question, but this is really heavy on my mind right now. Like what you're talking about is revolutionary. See, that's the real revolution. The real revolution is when we realize we can create whatever we want, right? And that's what's been wrong in the social justice movement is we've been asking the people that created this current construct to stop creating it, stop perpetuating it.
Yeah.
And that's because we're operating out of our egoic mind. That's because we haven't done our work to be clear on what we want and how to get it. How can we possibly, that's what's revolutionary to me, is how can we possibly ask other people to create for us what we don't even know that we want for sure for ourselves?
That's right.
So, and we're not doing it. And even once we say, oh, this is what I really want, but if we're not doing it, and yet we're going to be in leadership positions to be anti-racist, and that's what was so flawed about where you and I were in the quote unquote movement. That's what I'm really feeling so strongly, like the way that ego plays out in a social justice movement or an anti-racist movement we'll just say it for you and I, is that we weren't clear about what we wanted for ourselves. And all we kept creating was misery. Mm-hmm. That hell that you talked about. Mm-hmm. We created our own misery and our own hell over and over and over again. And then we stand up in front of people and tell them how to create a new world, a world without racism. Right. It's ludicrous. Yeah. It's ludicrous. That's what I'm really thinking about right now.
Yeah, you're right. It's insane, bro. It's the insanity of ego, right? But there's the beautiful thing about this conversation is there's another way. And, that way is for us to be soul focused, not to sound cliche or cheeky or trying to be cute, but it is for us to really tap into our authentic selves, our natural expression and our divine identity, and to bring our divine identity to bear. And through that divine identity, part of being divine beings is that we create. And we have the ability to create whatever it is that we believe can be true within ourselves. And so that for me, I mean, Martin, and maybe I know we're coming towards the end, but, the insanity of, we've been in this mode of literally begging people to see our humanity, which is asking for external validation, begging people who are so caught in their own sickness to create humanity, something that's more humanizing for us. And that's just not going to happen. When we truly understand all power starts from within, and everything that we experience externally is a result of what is going on within inside of us, both individually.
Right.
What I'm experiencing in my immediate world is a reflection of what's going on inside of me, and what we are all experiencing in our collective world is reflective of what's going on inside of us. When we truly begin to do that internal transformational work, we're naturally going to start to create things that are more reflective of what we feel about ourselves, what we know about ourselves inside. That's the nature of the work that we are embarked upon now, and I know that's the work that we're going to be embarked upon for the rest of our time in these bodies on this earth.
Yeah, and what we're both part of, is building a collective of people that have those same ideas and those same goals. That to me is powerful beyond measure. That's powerful beyond measures when you get it, when you have one person, but now you have multiple people that are coming from that same place. And then when we do start to feel conflict, we recognize where that's coming from in ourselves and stop externalizing everything and looking for the answer externally. Yeah, essentially being so focused. And I was just laughing when you said that, because it's not like we're trying to get to the end of a podcast or anything like that. But yes, we are all about staying so focused. So with that, Dustin Washington, I want to thank you so much, man. I really enjoyed just having this conversation with you in this format, man. It was beautiful to just share this time in this space with you.
Yeah, I agree, cuz. Me too, bro. Me too.
Yeah, yeah. So for everybody out there, we want you to know that we are expanding our footprint out on social media. So look us up on all the social media platforms under the Soul Focus Group. We want you to know that you can find us now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and we're going to expand out very soon to Amazon and some other platforms as well. So we want you to look for us. We're on YouTube as well under the Soul Focus Group. So please visit us there. And of course, go to the soulfocusgroup.com and check out all of our offerings. We want you to know that we deeply love each and every one of you. And that as we talk to each other, we're imagining you, and we're imagining all the souls that are listening to us right now, wherever you are, whatever point in time that you are. And we're feeling your energy and feeling your presence. And we want you to know how deeply we love you, we value you, and we want you to stay safe, stay sane in this crazy world. And most of all, we want you to stay soul focused.
Peace.
If you wish to support and represent the Soul Focus Group, check out our apparel store at our website, www.soulfocusgroup.com/shop.